The paradigm shift from physical to digital has really taken a drastic toll on the major record labels. Where there were 6 major record labels in the 80s and 90s, currently there's only 3. Now, what are these major record labels? Just what do they do? Well, they aren't like the labels of old, where you had an entrepreneur who might have been an artist or a songwriter, like Berry Gordy or Ahmet Ertegun, that really got involved in the creative process to a great degree. These major labels are really major conglomerates. And their primary job is manufacturing, marketing, and distributing the music through all different platforms. They may not get so involved, to some degree they do, on the creative level. What they have are subsidiary and sub-labels that provide those kind of services. So you have 3 major record labels currently. Sony Music Entertainment, a Japanese concern. Universal Music Group, owned by French conglomerate Vivendi. And the Warner Music Group, recently purchased by Leonard Blavatnik of Russia. These are the major labels, and I should say major manufacturers and marketers and distributors of up to 85 to 90% of the records that are sold today. They carry that kind of clout. All right, let's talk about the major labels and their subsidiary and sub-labels. Universal Music Group has a number of influential and significant sub-labels and subsidiaries like Island Def Jam, the great Interscope label, Geffen Records. Berry Gordy's Motown records are now distributed through Universal Music Group. And most recently, Universal Music Group purchased the catalog and contracts of EMI, Priority, and Capitol Records, reducing the number of major labels from 4 to 3. Sony Music Entertainment distributes the great catalogs and the artists that are signed to Columbia, Epic Records, Arista, J Records, and Jive Records. A great cadre of historic labels that has had a tremendous effect on the music industry. And lastly, the Warner Music Group distributes labels like Elektra, Atlantic, and of course, the Warner label. You know, it's amazing that even in this day and time of DIY, you find many artists that want to sign with major labels. But then at the same time, you have a number of other artists that would say, why in the world would you want to sign with a huge company that may not pay that much attention to you? Well, the people that feel that they need to be with major labels like the prestige of being with the major labels. They feel that that gives them clout not only as an artist, but they may have aspirations as producers and want to work with other artists that are signed with the labels, and by saying that they're signed to Columbia can open up new opportunities for them. Most of these artists also mention the fact that these major labels do have a distribution system that is wide and vast, particularly in the physical space. And I can tell you that that is really true. And here's the thing. Major labels are tremendous at expanding your market. I find it remarkable that a major label can decide on a particular date to have your recordings in record stores internationally. They can gear all of their marketing effort for the release of that record on that particular date. And I have to say that I am very impressed with major record labels. As an attorney representing artists, I've fought them on a number of issues. But, you know, years ago, I was able to get one of my clients' marketing plans from their record label. And as I thumbed through the marketing plan, I was amazed to see in all of the various areas the company had really structured specific marketing and promotion activities and the cost of those activities. The cost to have an ad in a national magazine, thousands of dollars. The cost to start an internet fan club or to promote through the internet, thousands of dollars. The cost to pay the expenses of the artist to appear on a nationally or internationally broadcast or televised talk show, thousands of dollars. And so it's amazing to see that record companies are able to not only meet those expenses, but also to have a distribution network which enables them to have that record in stores nationally and even internationally on a particular date. Because as that marketing is focused for that release date, they have the mechanism, and you certainly want your audience who you've targeted that marketing and promotion to be in a position to go into the store and pick up that record on that date. A growing trend in the music world today is for independent labels to start off on an independent distributed basis, and as they build their market, affiliate with major labels solely for distribution. This market has really taken off over the past few years as you've had great new independent labels like Big Machine Records that releases the recordings of Taylor Swift, great bands like Mumford & Sons working with the independent label Glass Note that is now distributed by a major, Vampire Weekend with the Beggars Group. Adele is also affiliated with the Beggars Group and is a tremendous force in the industry. Macklemore and Lewis had their own label that became so popular on their own that they ended up affiliating just for distribution purposes through one of the major labels. So that's a growing area of the industry. But now let's look at this from the historical perspective. Back in the 50s and 60s, and even in the 70s to some degree, most recording artists had to have a label in order for their product to reach the market. I'm talking about the pre-synth, the pre-drum machine, the pre-sampler age, when you went into a studio as an artist. Usually most artists didn't have the money to afford the cost of studio time, hiring an engineer, paying all of the session players that you needed to put together your recording. Back in those days, you actually had to have a piano player or a keyboardist. You had to have a drummer. I mean, a real drummer, traps. Maybe a bass guitar in the rhythm section, a real guitar in the rhythm section. And then after the basic rhythm tracks were done, you had something that was called, and is still called today, sweetening. Horns and strings. Individual players that played real instruments that had to come in the studio to lay the tracks to complete the recording. In addition to that, most artists didn't have the money to manufacture their records. They relied on the major record labels, not major record labels, but a record label, independent record label at that time as well, to pay for the cost of manufacturing. And they certainly didn't have the distribution system when it was strictly a physical market. That was one of the ways that the labels had a stranglehold on the artist. In order to reach the market, pretty much you had to go through a label's distribution relationship. But a number of things have changed over the past 40, 50 years. Well, how have they changed? Well, now do you really have to pay recording costs for a studio? Many artists have studios in their bedrooms, in their basements, maybe even in their kitchens or bathrooms. Do you have to have an engineer? A lot of the engineering can be done on your laptop. Do you have to manufacture a CD to be released? No, you can upload the file to SoundCloud or many of the other types of internet outlets that can be used today. What about marketing? Record labels also provided marketing that the artists couldn't afford years ago. Well, the marketing costs have been decreased as a result of social media outlets and creating viral videos, even YouTube, create tremendous, tremendous marketing and promotion for the artist. So in other words, maybe it really isn't necessary to have a record label today. Once again, entrepreneurship and innovation. So if you have the talent to be able to record yourself and put together all of the pieces of the recording, you could be in a great position to be in business. I remember Stevie Wonder years ago was one of the first artists to play all of the instruments as synthesizers came in. And it was really remarkable during that time because artists were looking at the fact that they had to bring in various session musicians to play. But when the synclavier came in, drum machines came in, Stevie was one of the first artists to record all of the music on his own. And that kind of set the music industry on a path of people being able to create their music at a very low-cost fashion using all of these new technological advancements. So, where are we now? We're in the age of DIY. Do it yourself. Can you create that product on your own? Maybe you can. Can you exploit all the various social media outlets to really create a hype, create a great YouTube video that's going to really maximize your exposure to the audience that you want to have? Are you going to be in a position not only to create that initial hype and develop that initial audience, but are you going to be able to develop that audience and expand it to the next level? That's primarily what the major labels are still saying to this day, that, wait a minute, when you really want to reach the broadest market, come to us. That's what we do. We can take you from this level to the next. And many DIY artists are feeling that pressure once they have that initial audience reception and success, whether or not they should go to the next level with the major labels, or if they should continue to try to do it yourself, DIY. Well, here's the difficulty with DIY. In order for you to get from that one level to the next, I say it's very hard to do it yourself. It's very hard to have a DIY, broad, mass exposure, worldwide exposure. Why? Because if you're involved in the creative process and you're writing your songs and you're recording your songs and you're into that creative groove, it's kind of tough to have to turn that off and get on Twitter and post an update, cut a YouTube video and post that and monitor it to see where it's really trending, whether or not you're trending. It can take away from the creative process. A lot of DIY musicians are now finding, in order, and I anticipate DIY artists will get to the point that they're going to find out that they need other people to help them get to that next level. In other words, it's not DIY. It will be DIO. Do it ourselves. And by that I mean they can point to someone who's a music business major and has the business experience to help on the management of what they're doing. They can find someone that's expert in social media and bring them into their team to help them expand their career. They can find someone who has contacts with sponsorships and endorsements to help them to attract needed financing for them to pursue other ventures on behalf of not only those companies, but maybe their own ventures, their own products. So I think we're moving into a stage of not just DIY. I think we're moving to the new stage of DIO, do it ourselves. I think it's important for new artists that have the ability to do this to surround themselves with the kind of team of professionals and experts in a vast number of areas to take their music and, most importantly, their business to the next level. You might be an engineer. And trust me, powerful product is still one of the big P's. They're going to need people that can put and mix the recordings so that it stands up over time. You might be an expert in social media. Artists are going to need great people to help them navigate the internet and the marketing and promotion through those means. If you're a songwriter, if you're a musician who can provide services in the studio as well, a manager, someone who can coordinate all of these activities on behalf of the artist, someone who could track down and arrange sponsorships and endorsements. Maybe you can create a new tech app that's going to provide some kind of benefit to expand the artist's career. All of these vast areas and opportunities are only going to grow as more and more people take advantage of the new technology and the new digital age.